You know, for decades, Europe has lived by this single powerful promise: never again. The idea that a massive war on the continent was just something you read about in history books. But right now, something is changing. There's a new message taking hold, and it's shifting that old motto from never again to something much more urgent: be ready. And the signs? Well, they're becoming impossible to ignore. And look, this isn't just talk, it's real, it's tangible. All across Europe, governments are sending out guides just like this one from Sweden. The title translates to If Crisis or War Comes, and they're mailing it to every single household in the country. This is literally what the new reality looks like. But it goes way beyond just reading material. Get this. In Poland, this new readiness has actually entered the classroom. School children there now have mandatory firearms training. That's a huge step, and it just shows how seriously this is all being taken. We've moved from pamphlets to practical, even militarized skills for the next generation. And it's not just a top-down government thing either. The people are feeling it too. In Spain, for example, inquiries about building private bunkers have shot up by 90%. That means citizens are taking their own steps to prepare for the worst, which tells you this isn't just policy, it's a real anxiety that's spreading. So what is going on here? Why this massive shift? And why now? To really get it, to understand this move to be ready, we've got to look back at some deep historical wounds that maybe never quite healed. At the core of this are what some experts call societal scars. Think of them as the collective traumas of war and occupation that become a part of a country's DNA. They're these inherited fears, passed down through generations, that shape how a nation sees the world and its threats, even decades later. So you've got these old, dormant scars, right? And then, bam, a whole series of modern crises just keeps poking at them. The 2008 financial crash, the refugee crises in the 2010s, the COVID-19 pandemic, and, of course, the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Each one of these events has been like a trigger, bringing all those old fears about instability roaring back to life. So, with all this going on, how do governments even begin to organize a response? Well, believe it or not, to understand what's happening today, we can turn to a surprisingly relevant theory from way back in the 19th century. This is Karl von Clausewitz. He was a Prussian general, and his book on war is still one of the most important things ever written on military strategy. And his ideas don't just explain wars of the past, they give us this incredible lens to understand how countries are preparing for conflicts of the future. Okay, so his most famous idea is something called the Clausewitzian Trinity. He basically argued that war is never just one thing. It's this dynamic triangle, a push and pull between three key forces: the government, the army, and, this is the crucial part for us, the people. Here's how it breaks down. The government sets the policy, the rational goals of the war. The military handles the fighting, dealing with chance and probability on the battlefield. But it's the people who bring the passion, the raw emotion, the hatred of the enemy, and most importantly, the will to keep going. Clausewitz said that without the people's passion, the whole war effort just falls apart. And that right there brings us right back to today. Because what we're seeing across Europe is a very deliberate, very conscious effort to activate that third corner of the Trinity. Governments are now telling their citizens, you're not just bystanders anymore. You're an active part of our national defense. Let's go back to that Swedish guide. It's a perfect example. The tone is direct, it's urgent, and it frames being prepared as your civic duty. The message couldn't be clearer. A resilient population is a fundamental part of Sweden's total defense. The people are now formally on the team with the government and the military. And it's not just Sweden, of course. Here's Poland's Get Ready guide and Denmark's Be Prepared. They're doing the same thing, but if you look closer, you'll see they have very different tones, and that's because of their own unique histories. And this is where you can really see those societal scars we talked about earlier. Poland's guide, coming from a country with a brutal history of being invaded, is incredibly direct, almost militarized. It actually tells you how to act if you're under foreign occupation. Denmark, on the other hand, is much calmer. It's more about, hey, can you be self-sufficient for 72 hours so our emergency services can focus on the bigger problem? And this is happening all over. Finland has this super detailed website for emergency planning. In Lithuania, more than 100,000 citizens have taken basic crisis skills courses. Germany is actually reopening its old Cold War-era bunkers. And France is working on its own survival manual. It's a genuine whole-of-society approach. So what you end up with is this new reality, where the line between regular civilian life and national defense is, well, it's getting really blurry. The civilian hand is now right there, clasped with the military and the government. It's Clausewitz's trinity being rebuilt for the 21st century. Okay, so let's step back for a second. What's the end game here? What's the ultimate strategic goal of all this preparation? It's about more than just helping people survive a crisis. It's actually about creating a whole new type of defense. The big idea here is something called deterrence by resilience, and the goal is pretty simple. Make your country so tough, so hard to break, that an enemy looks at you and decides it's just not worth the trouble to even try to attack. I mean, think about it. A society where people know how to spot disinformation, where they have supplies ready to go, where they're mentally prepared for tough times. That society is an incredibly difficult target. That resilience becomes just as important to national defense as tanks or fighter jets. So this shift from never again to be ready is profound. It's taking historical pain and turning it into a modern strength. But it leaves you with this really big question. When an entire society is told to always be ready for war, what does that do to the idea of peace? Does it ever feel permanent again?